guys, welcome to Fast Keto. I'm your host, Ketogenic Girl. Hey guys, welcome to Fast Keto. This episode is brought to you by Ketogenic Girl, and if you haven't picked up a copy of my brand new cookbook, Keto Essentials, head to Amazon today. It actually is 31% off. It's on sale right now, and it is everything that you need to know from a beginner to being advanced keto about getting the optimal results out of your ketogenic lifestyle. It explains everything about why keto works, how to test, how to interpret results, and lots of keto hacks to get you results quicker. It also has 150 of my most favorite decadent, rich, delicious keto recipes that are so nourishing and are so much fun to cook. Some of my favorite recipes, like my keto pad thai, fettuccine alfredo, some of my favorite desserts like keto cookie dough. There are so many delicious treats and ways that you can make keto work for you. A lot of easy to find ingredients. I don't put a lot of hard to find ingredients in the recipes, and everything you can find at most supermarkets. I do a lot of traveling and I'm able to make these recipes just with basic ingredients from the store. So lots of delicious, tasty recipes. It's on sale, 31% off. Head to Amazon and look up Keto Essentials and get the cookbook. Leave me a review. I would love to hear what you think, and also tag me if you post any photos of the recipes. It's my favorite thing to see your creations based on my recipes. So that's Keto Essentials on Amazon. Hey guys, welcome to this episode of Fast Keto. I am so pumped today to have an expert on diabetes and keto joining us today. Her name is Hannah, and you may know her as Hannah, the diabetes expert. Hannah Boitis has lived with type 1 diabetes as her constant companion for 33 years since she was diagnosed at the age of 2. It was as if her entire life fell into place when she started eating low carb in 2011, about 7 years ago. Since her first wake-up call about carbs and keto and eating low carb, she's gained so much of her health back thanks to simply eating the right things and nutrients for her body. Hannah is an international speaker, writer, and action taker, and she loves diabetes topics that are off the beaten track. She's passionate to find motivational and inspiring ways to bring about change in diabetes management. She has a company called Hannah Diabetes Expert, and she has inspired thousands of people with diabetes to live a healthier life by sharing her own story and experiences, as well as the puzzle pieces she's helped others to find. She has a profound understanding of how things like nutrition and lifestyle choices can balance diabetes. She's also the co-founder of an incredible event that I had the chance to be at this spring. It is the very first interactive 100% low carb event, the first of its kind in Europe, called the Carb Universe. And it has a mixture of lectures and workshops where it's possible to dig deeper and into interesting topics and learn from one another. I had such a fantastic time at the conference, and we talk about it a little bit more in the interview. Hannah is really an inspiring entrepreneur. She speaks all around the world about the topic of keto and diabetes and her own journey and story. And we're going to talk a lot about that, how keto can help with diabetes management, and her story and some of the main recommendations that she makes to people who have diabetes type 1 and are interested in learning more about keto and low carb diets. So we had a great time chatting. It was really fun to delve into these topics a little bit more together, and also talk about, as I mentioned, the conference and a little bit more information on that. So stay tuned for that interview, which is going to start shortly. And I hope that you guys enjoy this discussion with Hannah. A few disclaimers. By listening to this podcast, you agree not to use this podcast as medical advice, as I am not a qualified healthcare provider. The information presented on this podcast is for educational purposes only. Ketogenic Girl is not qualified to provide medical advice. Consult your own physician for any medical issues that you may be having. This entire disclaimer also applies to any guests or contributors to this podcast. Prior to beginning a ketogenic diet, you should undergo a full health screening with your physician to confirm that a keto diet is suitable for you and to rule out any conditions or contraindications that may pose risks or that are incompatible with a ketogenic diet. A keto diet may or may not be appropriate for you if you have any kind of health condition, whether known to you or unknown, so you must consult your physician to find this out. Anyone under the age of 18 should consult with their physician and their parents or legal guardian. Hannah, it's so good to have you here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Vanessa. It's so fun to be here chatting with you today.
Yeah, welcome. Hannah and I got to actually meet in person for the first time. It always feels like in our community that we know each other so well just from interacting over Instagram and Facebook and all this stuff. And then you meet someone and it's just like this natural like continuation of that, because we kind of get to share so much of ourselves and with each other online, which is so cool to get to actually meet you in person, and had such an incredible time at your event, the Keto Ladies.
Yay, I'm so happy to hear that. And really, one of my life goals, at least in the keto world, has been to meet you. So I was very happy that actually happened.
Oh, that's so sweet. That's so sweet. Mine too. Absolutely. And I'm such an admirer of all that you do, and especially all of your speaking and everything that you do for people who have diabetes, and educating people about using a ketogenic diet for that is so important. So I just want to start off by saying, for anyone who's not familiar with the work that you do, can you tell us a little bit about it and yourself?
Absolutely. I've lived with type 1 diabetes since I was 2. That's when I was diagnosed. It was crazy times for my parents. I didn't, of course, understand anything. That's the reason why I am now spreading the word of keto out there in the world. What I do with it? Well, right now I do a lot of public speaking engagements. I share stuff that people have found out through my help, for example, because I've been coaching for a very long time. And I also try to write and share pictures, and actually, I have to say, a lot of food pictures on Instagram, because people ask me a lot, so what do you actually eat? So that has become a big thing in my spreading the message thing. The way I got into keto was a little bit later than I would have liked to be honest, because growing up with type 1 diabetes from the 1980s, of course, the low-fat popular thinking was very widespread at that point. And diabetics would, of course, die on the spot if they had a little pat of butter or, olive oil or avocado or something like that, or even a nut. Like, don't even go there. So it was all low-fat. It was all bland. It was lots of carbs. Like, people with diabetes still get the advice of 45 to 60 grams of carbs per meal, which is insanity. It's insanity.
It's amazing.
That's what it is. Anyway, and so I grew up with this advice too. So if you had a glass of skim milk with your meal, you got extra points from the dietitian. And if you finished your meal with a piece of fruit, more extra points for you today. This is beautiful, Hannah. Great work. Then that I was almost dying at the age of 26, that was a different story. No one cared about that. So growing up with it was a real struggle, mainly because I got advice that just weren't the right ones for me, or for any diabetic for that matter, but definitely not for me. In one sentence, keto has really saved my life.
That's amazing. Now, how did you first find keto? And you mentioned you started eating low carb in 2011. So what led you there?
Actually, going keto was another long story, because I started off re-educating myself as a nutrition coach. I started off with my teacher when we went over insulin and carbs and how that works in the body. He singled me out in front of the class and he's like, "You don't even make insulin. What are you eating all that sugar and carbs for? There's no point." I'm like, whew. That was my reality check.
Wow.
And after that, I got very, very angry, of course, because I had been lied to for 26 years at that point. I was, at that point, unsure if I was going to see my 30th birthday. Luckily, I'm 5 years on the other side now. Yay! So I got to. But that's good. But at that point of time, it was very unclear to me if I would get there. And so I started slowly cutting out everything with gluten because type 1 is an autoimmune disease. And autoimmunity and gluten do not go together very well at all. And so I started there, and then I slowly but surely steps further and further until where I am now, 7 years later, where I am at a ketogenic level of basically as little carbs as possible and lots of the other yummy good stuff that I eat.
So just for anyone who's curious to understand more, can you briefly explain the difference between type 1 and type 2?
Absolutely. Type 1 is, as I said, a autoimmune disease. It's where your immune system looks at the insulin-producing cells in the pancreas and goes like, I should wipe you out just in case you're something bad. What, of course, this immune system doesn't realize is that it's not really helping you at all. It's actually shooting you right in the foot, or actually right in the pancreas, to put it correctly. And it means that you will be on exogenous insulin, as in injecting it from the outside, through syringes, pens, or insulin pumps for the rest of your life. Which is why it's so tragic that it was called juvenile diabetes. So mainly affecting kids and teenagers, meaning that they have a very long life ahead of them with all these exogenous insulin coming in and all this guessing work that it does entail. Type 2, on the other hand, is when the pancreas, or actually when the cells don't recognize the insulin that the pancreas produces anymore. So a person with type 2 diabetes has way too much insulin in their system in comparison to a type 1 who has nothing and no own production. The similarities between the two is, of course, that you want low, stable, and normal blood sugar levels. And that is achieved easiest if you don't aggravate the system with too many carbs. So the sort of, not the treatment, but part of the treatment for both kinds is very well done with, if not ketogenic, then definitely lower carb intake.
So in general, is it safe for type 1 diabetics to do a ketogenic diet, in your opinion?
In my opinion, absolutely. Because there's a big difference between nutritional ketosis and what people with type 1 are and should be very afraid of, which is diabetic ketoacidosis. Those are two completely different things. And in order to get to DKA for short, you need insulin. There's a lot of things that need to go wrong for you to get a lack of insulin in your system. It's either forgetting to take injections, which is, it happens, we're all human, that's fine. Or there is a delivery error, or there's an error with the insulin itself. As long as you keep a good check, actually an eagle eye on your blood sugar levels, keep hydrated, and take your insulin that your body needs, there is no problem at all. You can go quite deep into ketosis as well. Not everyone feels well there, but you can without being in any kind of risk.
So you basically follow a ketogenic diet that is, are you at sort of 20 grams and below carb per day, or what is your keto diet?
The only thing I keep track of is carbs for obvious reasons, because that's what I have to take into account when my daily treatment decisions, which are sometimes more guesswork than actual skills, but that's okay. That's just the way it is with diabetes, whether you eat keto or not, because the only thing that keto really does is to eliminate a big part of it, but not all of it. Anyway, so the only thing I keep track of is carbs. My goal is not to be in ketosis, really, at all, but I end up there anyway. So apparently I'm doing something right.
And do you also, you mentioned that you only keep track of carbs, but protein and amino acids also require insulin. So yes. Do you also need to inject for that?
It depends on how much I have in one go. But as we both know, satiating, especially if you eat it together with fat, and that is basically all that you eat. Fine, I have vegetables, so there's a few marginal carbs in every meal as well. But when you eat them together, it's very satiating. And I don't usually get to the point where I have to inject extra insulin because I ate too much protein.
Right. Now, what's an average day of keto food like for you? I know you mentioned a lot of people ask you about that. So what would an average day look like for you?
Oh, I am every dietitian's nightmare, because people with diabetes, of course, get the wonderful advice of eating small meals and often to keep your blood sugar level stable. Yeah, that works super well if you want to keep your blood sugar level stable and super high, and especially with the amount of carbs that they prescribe. Because I don't see the point of stressing my body with extra food and extra calories and extra carbs if I'm not hungry. I eat twice a day, so I skip breakfast just because I'm not hungry. It's not that I'm trying to do intermittent fasting or have a 16-8 approach or whatever it turns out to be in terms of hours, but it's just because I'm not hungry. And nowadays I dare to listen to my body, which I didn't before. So I eat twice a day. They're quite sizable meals because, of course, when I'm hungry, I want food. For example, it's always a piece of protein, whether it's maybe a hamburger patty or chicken or fish or a steak or something like that. There's always vegetables, whether that's salad or right now I'm really into oven roasted asparagus because the tips get all crispy and lovely.
Yum.
Oh God. And do that when I feel like bulking it up a bit because I know I won't be satisfied on just protein and this vegetable part. I also add a bit of fat, like for example, to a steak, I have béarnaise sauce or with fish hollandaise sauce or like a herb butter or something like that, so that there's always something that keeps me a little happier a little longer.
That's awesome. So it sounds like the fats, you restrict the carbs, you moderate the protein to what you need, and you just add in a little bit of fat to keep satiety there, but not quite like really high levels.
No, not anymore. I used to do that in the beginning when I really went keto, which is that 3 or 4 years ago now? I don't even remember. I think 4. So I did that in the beginning just to really give it a go, so I didn't get stuck in this limbo, which a lot of people do when they start keto, where they don't introduce enough fat because they don't really dare to. And then they end up in this perpetual keto flu and hate everything about keto, and keto wasn't for them and all of this stuff. So in order to avoid that, I added on so much fat that, I was even ashamed to look at my plate after the 26 years of, brainwashing of you can't have fat, you can't have fat, you can't have fat. Yeah. I'm like, I'm taking all of those 26 years back right now on this one plate, right? That's awesome. So, but that was really good because my body realized that, I have an alternative energy source. I don't have to starve. I don't have to go hungry. There's plenty of energy to work with. And that's what I needed in the beginning of keto. After a while, I just don't need as much fat anymore, because I think my body has figured out that there's a everlasting supply, which is right in my butt.
The body's clued in, absolutely. And it's funny, when I started, I also, really went heavy on the healthy fats. And a lot of that is to get the body to, understand, okay, well, it's safe, you're getting enough energy, but also it helps the body make a lot of lipase, which is a fat burning enzyme, and put you in that fat burning state. So definitely helps a lot at the beginning. I've definitely reduced my intake of healthy fats from what it was at one point. I think at some days up to 200-300 grams a day. And I'll still do days like that as long as they're all very healthy sources of fat. I'll still do days like that to spike my caloric intake. But for the most part, I use it a lot less than I did before, as like you said, the body has virtually unlimited stores to draw from. So it doesn't really require it as much. So that's really interesting that you've moderated
I
down.
think so.
Hear that a lot from different people. Mm-hmm.
No, I was just going to say that also I find for myself and a lot of other people that the taste buds change so much when you are properly keto adapted and have been keto for a while. Because, for example, sweet stuff doesn't taste as good anymore at all. And even, 90% chocolate is super sweet. Or whipped cream at this point for me is super sweet. And this is the kind of thing that you would never have thought of beforehand. It's the magic of keto, I think. Part of it, at least.
It is incredible how much the tongue resensitizes itself to what actual sweetness is instead of this manipulated, distorted sense of sweetness. And I actually, coming up next month will be 1 year that I quit sweeteners. And I remember reading about people who lived without sweeteners, and I thought that they were nuts. Like, I was like, those people they've just gone too far. It's too far for me. I don't like it. They're extreme. They're crazy, but it actually just happened. We are a little crazy extreme, but it actually happened so naturally for me. And that's what I find so cool is going away from sweeteners and intermittent fasting are things that just happen naturally the longer you do this lifestyle. And I think it has so much to do with just going back to how we were initially designed to function, and you start optimizing to that. And it's incredible how tasting the sweetness in vegetables. I mean, we had these grilled vegetables in Mallorca, just grilled eggplant and zucchini. And I'm going, these taste so incredibly sweet. I mean, obviously grilled peppers taste sweet, but you can't even imagine when you've been off sweeteners and you've been doing this lifestyle for a while, how sweet everything can taste. It's really incredible.
Yeah, no, it's very special. And people
it blows my mind.
Who aren't keto maybe yet think that you are absolutely insane. And that's fine. I'm fine with that.
I know. Yeah, totally. And you don't really know until you experience it for yourself. I had one friend who would post about eating 100% dark chocolate, and I was like, she's just crazy. I was a candy addict for so many years, and now all I eat is 100% dark chocolate. And when I taste anything less than that, it tastes so sweet to me.
Milk chocolate.
Yeah, when we were in Mallorca, I actually tasted a bar that I got from my husband that had some stevia in it. And I was like, I made a face right away. I was like, this is so sweet. But yeah, it's a really cool gift. And it's so interesting how these changes just naturally come about, and you start to, like you said, tune into your body more, listen more to your body.
Yeah.
So what are some of the kind of biggest game changers for you in terms of changing and shifting your lifestyle? Maybe something that you did that had the biggest impact?
I think it was a good combination of things. First of all, that I even dared to try. That was probably the biggest impact that it had, because as soon as I started cutting carbs out one after the other, I of course saw an immediate change on my blood sugars. I got more stable blood sugars. I wasn't on the blood sugar roller coaster anymore. I could slowly but surely, actually I should have gone a lot quicker, but I could decrease the amount of insulin I took. So now I basically take a fifth of what I used to when I was still high carbing it. And that is just such an improvement in lifestyle and in life quality, not having to be, not having to micromanage every little step that you take, and not having to do, all of these things. It just has cut out a lot of stress from my life. So I'm very thankful for that. And I can't really say that there's this like one magic thing that I did, but starting was a good starting point, and then continuing in the way that I chose to, or in the way that I was somehow led, not that I had help from anyone. I did this all on my own, which is why I tried to help other people now, because it wasn't easy to do it without support. And so I was somehow led down this path of both nutritional changes and lifestyle changes at the same time, which together somehow created this keto magic that I'm so happy and thankful for that I've incorporated into my life right now.
Be sure to check out the 28-day Ketogenic Girl Challenge if you're interested in trying out keto for yourself. It is a great program for beginners and for more advanced ketoers, and I include 28 days of meal plans, shopping lists, a guide to testing yourself for ketosis, interpreting the results, and I also have my free members group where I do all the support and coaching. You can post any question at all that comes to mind about keto, and I am there supporting you and answering your questions. It's a fantastic way of getting into ketosis if you've struggled, if you've been trying to get the results that you want and you're not seeing them. I'm here to guide you. So check it out at ketogenicgirl.com. That's www.ketogenicgirl.com. And it's the 28-day Ketogenic Girl Challenge. That's one of the things that's so neat to me about keto is, we say it's not a diet, it's a lifestyle, because there's so many different aspects to being keto. It's really not just the food that you eat. It has to do with so much more than that. So what are some lifestyle changes you've made that you think complement a keto diet that maybe you didn't do?
One of them is
before?
definitely de-stressing. So stress management in different ways. I do meditate daily. I know that's not for everyone. It's completely okay. It doesn't have to be, but it really helps me because stress is a blood sugar killer. Like that raises your blood sugar faster than any Hershey's candy bar, it's terrible. So if you have that, basic stress management going, you can take daily stressors a lot easier. So meditation is definitely one of them. Another one is yoga that has stuck with me for a good while now. And that does the same, apart from the fact that it challenges my body in completely different ways than I'm used to. It's also a de-stressor because all you have to think about right then and there is your breathing and that you're bending your body in the right sort of direction, hopefully. Then, of course, that for a person with diabetes, and especially a person who is insulin dependent, the feeling of, you can never really let go of how you feel. It's always there in the back of your mind, 24/7, 365, year after year, year in, year out. It's always there at the back of your mind. And it has to be, because you are the only one. You're the first person who's going to know when you're not feeling well. And that is why it's so important for you to get to know your body so well that you can actually eat intuitively, that you can move intuitively, and that everything that comes with diabetes, like blood sugar checks, medications and everything, they're just tools to make you feel or help you be even healthier. But you have to get to that point where you really know your body inside out. And I think that's a benefit, actually, if there is one, with diabetes, that it sort of forces you to get to know yourself very, very well on a very, very long-going level, to put it that way. So that those two, and then also supplements, and taking the correct supplements that I need. Not just because of keto, but because of my diabetes as well. Definitely magnesium, because high blood sugars, of course, require a lot of magnesium to bring them back. Zinc I take every day. Omega-3 because it's anti-inflammatory, and high blood sugars are very inflammatory for the body. And even if I have normal blood sugars most of the time, it doesn't, of course, exclude the fact that it jumps up every once in a while. Like that, I can't get away from that, even no matter how strictly I eat, because there's so many other factors that play a role, like hydration, stress, sometimes even the weather, if you're getting sick, if you are getting out of a sickness, your period, those hormones, everything around that stuff that Jimena talks about, that influences blood sugar hugely for a person with diabetes. Probably other people too, but they just don't know about it.
I saw you posted something about,
Yes.
I think it was earlier this week, that you needed to go back to your bay. your bacon and eggs to regulate things, and how that's kind of your go-to whenever that happens? Like, what would cause that to happen in you, or what?
Well, definitely.
Even if you're managing it so closely.
Last week, it was this beautiful, sexy whiskey voice that I got. So I was getting sick, and that's why my blood sugars were jumping around like a bouncy castle about. Well, it's all relative. It never, ever looks as bad as it could do for me when I was eating high carbs. So high carbs, and then trying to cover that stuff with lots and lots of insulin to try to somehow meet that. And that equation never works out. There's just too much margin of error for that to ever work out, which is why it's so much easier to, little input means, smaller error margins. And so little carbs, you have to cover it with a little bit of insulin, or less insulin at least. And that means that your margin of error is not that big. Not that much can go wrong. But, when you try to then juggle lots of carbs, lots of insulin, and then, for example, get at the same time, that's an impossible equation. No one can solve that. And then when you see these, well, in the diabetes online community, at least, you see these incredibly sad, actually, posts, but they are desperate, of these blood sugar curves going just up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down, because there's just no way they can control that stuff, because there's just, the margins of error are so large. Whereas when someone on a well formulated low carb / ketogenic diet who needs a little bit of insulin, I can just easily up my insulin, and I can see, fine, it might not come back to normal levels, my blood sugar, in one go, but I can see at least, where that there is hope. Like, it will never go up to the 400s anymore, even if I'm super sick. It maybe goes up to 200, which is quite all right for well, it's never a right, but in comparison, it is a right for someone who's been diabetic for 33 years and eating low carb, rather than someone who's eating high carb and has that on a daily basis, not even when they're sick.
So what's a stable blood sugar for you throughout the day or postprandial?
Oh, my goal is always to have a normal, healthy person's levels of blood sugar. So it's always between 3.5 and 6. That's where I aim to be at all times.
So that's sort of 90 and 50 or 40 on the other scale. Okay.
A little bit more maybe. But
Interesting. And do you also aim to have a certain level of ketones, blood ketones?
No, I don't. I only measure ketones if I feel really bad, just to check that it's not ketoacidosis, that nothing is wrong with my insulin pump, that nothing's wrong with, so I can at least rule out that part. But every time that I do measure, I'm around 2-3 millimoles of ketones without even trying.
Right.
So in that way, I do understand that there's a lot of people who really struggle with getting into ketosis. But I wonder what that could be. I would love to error search someone like that for a little while. That'd be interesting.
One of the things that I tell people all the time is they don't have to test ketones daily, because they're inversely correlated. So as long as your blood sugar is nice and consistently stable and low, that you should be getting, moderate ketones. But I guess in a diabetic situation as well, you want to have some ketones, but you're more monitoring that you don't have them too high.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Now, if someone is diabetic type 1, that's mostly what you focus on, I'm assuming, because that's
because
your
there's
background.
a lot of people focusing on type 2. So I'll take one for the type 1 team.
Yeah, exactly. So if someone has type 1 and they're curious about learning more about this, what are some of the things that you advise them to get, started in learning about it, researching about it?
I would definitely recommend the Diabetic Bible, which is Dr. Richard Bernstein's Diabetes Solution. It's a wonderful book. He's not keto, actually. He is more of a low carb, high protein kind of guy. But it works wonders for vast majority of diabetics, because some diabetics, when they do try high fat keto, they go actually more insulin resistant. And that's
really
why, yes, it's
is that as a protective mechanism?
I have no idea why, but it's a very interesting phenomenon because it shouldn't be like that, of course. But for some people, I guess the fat sort of clogs the insulin locks in the cells. That's my theory, and I don't know if that's correct or not, but this is how I envision it. And they simply can't eat that much fat. This is why he talks about low carb, high protein, and then using, and that's also why that one is safer for type 1 kids, for example. Because in type 1, you don't really need the deep ketosis as you do, for example, with epilepsy or something like that. You just need lower carbs so that you can, to the best of your abilities, control your blood sugars.
Can too much protein also put you in the same position?
It doesn't seem to, which is very interesting. So yes, the first resource is definitely Dr. Bernstein's Diabetes Solution.
And we can put that in the show notes for anyone who wants to look it up. And then you teach a master class for people to wrap their minds around everything involved in it.
Yes, well, I have a special masterclass in how to lower your A1C level, which is a very important blood marker for people with diabetes. It's not be all and tell all of everything, but it's very important, and it basically is your average blood sugar level for the past 3 months about. So that basically tells you how good of a control you have. But to that, you should also count, standard deviation and all of this stuff of your daily blood sugar measurements, which is besides the point. But so my masterclass is how to lower that value. And of course, eating low carb is number one. And then there's a lot of the lifestyle factors around that can help you on your journey. And I mean, I do this as a presentation at a few places in the world. So come on over and join us.
Absolutely. Hannah and I are both going to be at KetoCon this summer in Austin, which is going to be so much fun. So excited for that. And I'm sure your talk is fantastic. So if anyone's in the Austin or Texas area, they should definitely come down to check it out. Now, what is the biggest risk for someone who is diabetic, say type 1 or variation of that? I think we were talking a little bit about how there's also maybe 1.5 for someone whose pancreas is compromised in ability, the beta cells, to produce insulin. Is there anything that they need to be particularly cautious? Obviously they need to work with their doctor if they're doing anything new, any kind of diet or exercise changes. But to start out with low carb, what are some of the biggest risks or things that they should, be mindful of?
Well, I can answer that from my own perspective, what I did wrong in the beginning. And that was definitely not lower my insulin dosages early enough. So I had quite a few very bad hypoglycemias, so low blood sugars in the very beginning of keto, because I just didn't put 2 and 2 together that, less carbs, less sugar means I don't need as much insulin. So I just went on with, my normal giant doses of insulin. And then I'm like, wow, that went really low. What happened? And then I'm like, okay, great. Rule number 1, you don't need as much insulin on keto as you do on high carb. So that is definitely the number 1 risk in the beginning until you learn. And this is a steep learning curve, especially with diabetes, because so much influences blood sugar, as I said, but definitely the amount of carbs that you eat definitely influences the most.
Now I'm curious, have you ever gone like zero carb, kind of like a carnivore style keto, since you mentioned that you're taking insulin primarily for the amount of limited carb that you eat?
I haven't really yet, I haven't given it a proper try yet. I have, of course, I have meals here and there that are very vegetable limited, to put it that way. But no, I haven't given it proper try yet. On that note, though, like you mentioned, my bay post from last week, my bacon and egg post, and that seems to break, in comparison to other people that I mentioned before who seem to be more insistent when they eat more fat, I seem to be doing really, really well as long as I eat, animal fats, like bacon and eggs, fried in butter, preferably, and that seems to actually break insulin resistance for me, which is interesting.
That's interesting because it is it's zero carb meal.
It really is.
So you're able to do that, but then afterwards you go back to having more vegetables just for the nutrient content?
Yeah, a newer concept in my keto world is really nutrient, what's it called? Density. That's the word I'm looking for. And I find, because I'm not a natural like liver and heart and brain and kidney eater, I really am not. I'm way too, I don't know, picky for that. So I don't think that I can get all the nutrients that I need from mainly eating muscle meat. And that's one of the reasons why I keep vegetables in my diet still for the foreseeable future, but also because it varies up the diet a little bit more. And because some people, myself not included, think that keto is very restrictive, I don't want to sort of, I shouldn't care what other people think, but I don't want to take that extra step and piss off more people than I already am with the way that I'm eating, sort of thing.
Yeah, I think that it's just really important to get a lot of healthy greens in the diet, especially for having all those electrolytes and potassium and essential minerals and fiber and stuff that we need. So even though, you probably can do a mostly meat-based diet, it's just, there aren't really essential carbs, but it is really important, especially to have fermented foods in there.
Yeah, exactly.
And like you said, if you're not eating organ meats all day, then it's just really good to have those as a part of your balanced, really healthy. Yeah.
I'm just afraid that I'll get bored. That's my biggest problem,
right?
I think.
Right. Absolutely. Now, if this is one of my favorite Tim Ferriss questions, but if you could put a billboard out there for everyone with diabetes to see, what would it say?
There is always a way.
That's really good. Yeah. Keep exploring.
And also, how big is this billboard?
That's great. That's really great. It's, you've obviously been a health advocate for yourself, and it's incredibly inspiring to see what you've done. And I also love that you're an entrepreneur and you've, built this business for yourself. You built your Henna Diabetes Expert business, and you've also recently launched a Low Carb Universe, which has been incredible. So tell people a little bit about that.
First of all, my colleague Bitte, who lives in Sweden, and I, who live in Switzerland, organize the Europe's first interactive 100% low carb events in Mallorca. So we've really figured this out. In terms of geography, we're doing really well. Anyway, but we have a lot of fun, and we collect and try to get people together and mix some of the most well-known experts within keto and low carb in the world, such as yourself, such as researchers, such as doctors, all these people that are high profile within the low carb world. And then we mix you guys with people that maybe aren't as big within the low carb world yet. But so that they also get a chance to share their knowledge, because that is sometimes the most astonishing part to hear. Like, if it's a big profile, you sort of know if you've been following them for a while, you sort of know what they stand for, sort of what their ground rules are, all of that stuff. But then when, a person that you haven't heard that much from or about gets up there and they just share this, the most amazing story, and you're like, oh my God, what is happening? So we're trying to, mix that part. We're trying to attract an audience that is very mixed, put these people together in event concept. I'm going to stop calling it conferences because that's not what they are. They're events. We mix lectures with workshops so that everyone can really get to their pain points and get to discuss the stuff that they really, really care about, which is maybe not so usual at other low-carb happenings.
I had such an incredible time at your conference. I think precisely
so
because of all the wonderful people that you brought together. It created this incredible energy. Everyone there, like you said, people who are more high profile, less high profile, everyone had incredibly important, significant things to share. Yeah. And everyone was really united in a common mission and passion. And it creates this energy that's so much bigger than, the conference itself. It's just this intangible, incredible energy. And I had the absolute best time at your event. I'm so excited, for the next ones. And I just love what you guys put together, the hotel venue, the location. I had never been to Mallorca before, but it's just such a stunning island. The hotel is so comfortable. It really is. And I got to say the food, the food is beyond, because I was telling my parents, it's one of the first times that I've been able to go to an event for 3 days and not have to think about how am I going to eat there, because everything was catered keto. So, we didn't have to ask for things off the menu. We didn't have to stress about that. Yeah. And you just totally let go. And that everything, they were so conscientious of it. Even the desserts, like just coconut cream, there wasn't even sweeteners in it, or even natural sweeteners, which was just such a treat to be able to relax and enjoy such delicious food that, was so aligned with everything that we were talking about and doing there. And, I think that's a huge, huge plus for people to just be able to go and enjoy and relax.
Yeah, thank you so much for saying that, because that is really one of the things that have been so important to both Bitte and myself, because we have essentially created the event that we would love to go to, where, there's super interesting topics, super interesting speakers. The speakers are not kept away from the audience. They are actually sort of forced to mingle with the guests. And so they're all part of it. And that where you can really enjoy the food that you're eating, instead of, having to sit there going like, oh yes, but I would really like this thing on the menu, but I am at a health conference, so I should probably have this. No, you don't have that. You don't have that option. You just have really delicious, low carb, keto foods. And that is one of our key not milestones, but key cornerstones that are very, very important to us. So thanks for noticing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the location's spectacular. The people are, the food, everything all just came together so well. And it's a testament to you guys and your organizational skills. So people should definitely check it out. And they can find out more at thelowcarbuniverse.com.
Yes, absolutely. And so our next event is coming up in November, from November 13th to 18th in Mallorca, Spain. Again, it'll be hopefully still warm and sunny, and you should definitely not miss out.
Awesome. And where can people find you otherwise online?
Ooh, everywhere almost. My webpage is hannaboetius.com. I'm sure you can write that down in the show notes, because my last name is not easy to spell, maybe, for everyone. On Facebook, I am Hannah Diabetes Expert. On Instagram also, and I'm also on Twitter. And of course, we have this set up for the Low Carb Universe as well. So just find us Either way, everywhere.
Track you down and hunt you down and find you, because your information is
Hunt
so
me down.
valuable and amazing. So thank you so much for joining us and being here. And it was such a pleasure to have you sharing all this incredible knowledge today, Hannah. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been such a pleasure.
Thanks for tuning in today to Fast Keto, guys. It was such a great conversation that Hannah and I got to talk about. I hope that you got some takeaways from it, and you can also share it with anyone you know who is interested in learning more about diabetes management with ketogenic or low carb, high fat diet and lifestyle. If you are interested in learning more, you can find out about some of the links that she mentioned in the show notes, which I will post, as well as a transcript. And that was this week's episode. I hope that you guys have a fantastic fat-fueled week. And if you're interested, be sure to check out all the latest podcast episodes on iTunes. Leave me a review. I would absolutely love to hear what you think of the podcast so far. And it's so helpful to receive reviews with a brand new podcast like this one. So I really appreciate your time in doing that. If you'd like to learn more about Ketogenic Girl programs, you can go to ketogenicgirl.com and check out the 28-day Ketogenic Girl Challenge. Right now, the program comes with 28 days of meal plans, shopping lists, everything you need to know about testing, interpreting results, and all of the meal plans for the entire 28 days. It's a great way to just get yourself started on keto, learn as much as you can about it as quickly as possible. And it also comes with my free support and coaching in our Facebook group for members. So you can post any and all questions in there about keto, and I'm always in there answering questions and providing any feedback that I can. So check out the 28-day Ketogenic Girl Challenge at ketogenicgirl.com, and I hope that you have a fantastic fat-fueled week, and looking forward to joining you guys for the next episode. Bye for now. A few disclaimers. By listening to this podcast, you agree not to use this podcast as medical advice, as I am not a qualified healthcare provider. The information presented on this podcast is for educational purposes only. Ketogenic Girl is not qualified to provide medical advice. Consult your own physician for any medical issues that you may be having. This entire disclaimer also applies to any guests or contributors to this podcast. Prior to beginning a ketogenic diet, you should undergo a full health screening with your physician to confirm that a keto diet is suitable for you and to rule out any conditions or contraindications that may pose risks or that are incompatible with a ketogenic diet. A keto diet may or may not be appropriate for you if you have any kind of health condition, whether known to you or unknown, so you must consult your physician to find this out. Anyone under the age of 18 should consult with their physician and their parents or legal guardian.